In this video, I'm going to solve polynomial equations by factoring using a graphing calculator and using the quadratic formula. So we're going to start off with factoring. So we're just going to factor and then solve for what x equals. So in the first one, we have f of x equals 2 times x squared plus 5x plus 2. So to factor this, I need to figure out what two numbers add together to equal 5 and multiply together to equal 2 times 2, which is 4. So I know 1 times 4 is 4 and 1 plus 4 is 5. So that helps me break down this middle term into 2. So we have f of x is equal to 2x squared plus 1x plus 4x plus 2. Okay, using this, I'm going to put parentheses around the first two terms and last two terms and see what I can factor out. So in the first one, I can factor out an x, and I'm left with 2x plus 1. The second one, I can factor out a 2, and I'm left with 2x plus 1. Okay, so then, again, I'm going to keep factoring. We have f of x is equal to, greatest common factor, we have 2x plus 1, so factor that out. Multiply that by x plus 2. Okay, we're not quite finished. Next step, we have to actually solve for what x is equal to. So we did say we're going to solve. So don't forget, it's easy to factor and think, oh, I'm done, but you have to go back and solve for x. So we're going to say 2x plus 1 equals 0. I'm just going to solve for x, subtract 1 on both sides, and we get 2x equals negative 1. Divide both sides by 2, and x is equal to negative 1/2. That was just one of them. We have to do the other one also. Here we have x plus 2 equals 0. Subtract 2 on both sides, and x is equal to negative 2. Okay, so we have two x values. All right, so let's try one more. In this one, okay, I can see right away I can factor something out. Every number, every coefficient can be divided by 2. So I'm going to factor out a 2. And we have x to the 4th, x cubed, and x squared. So I can divide everything by x squared. So I'm going to factor that out. Okay, and I'm left with 2 divided by 2 is 1, and x to the 4th divided by x squared is x squared, minus 14 divided by 2 is 7, x cubed divided by x squared is x, plus 24 divided by 2 is 12, x squared divided by x squared is 1, so 12 times 1 is just 12. Okay, so now I'm going to break this down. So because there's not a number multiplied by x squared, it's easier. All I have to figure out is what two numbers add up to equal negative 7, what multiply together to equal 12. Okay, well, I know they're both going to be negative because they multiply and equal a positive, add to equal a negative. So they're both negative. I know negative 3 times negative 4 is 12. Negative 3 plus negative 4 is negative 7. So we have f of x equals 2x squared times x minus 3 times x minus 4. Okay, so I have to set each of these equal to 0. Okay, so we have 2x squared equals 0. To solve for x, divide both sides by 2, and we get x squared equals 0. We want to know what x is, not x squared. Opposite of squaring something is taking the square root. So to solve for x, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Square root of x squared is x, equals square root of 0 is 0. So this is one of my answers. Next one, we have x minus 3 equals 0. I'm going to add 3 to both sides, and we get x equals 3. That's the second answer. Then we have x minus 4 is equal to 0. I'm going to add 4 to both sides, and x is equal to 4. Okay, so go ahead and try 2 problems just like those, and then we will go through the answers together when you're ready. All right, so this first one, I know that I need to figure out what to add together to equal 4, multiply together to equal -5, which is -1 times 5 gives me -5. -1 plus 5 is +4. So f of x is equal to x minus 1 times x plus 5. So now we just have to set them equal to 0. X minus 1 equals 0, so add 1 to both sides, x equals 1. Also, x plus 5 is equal to 0, subtract 5 on both sides, and x is equal to -5. Hopefully that one was pretty easy. The next one we have to do some factoring before we start. We have f of x is equal to, we can divide everything by 3 and by x. So we're left with x squared plus 6x plus 9. Okay, f of x equals 3x times, okay, we need to figure out what we add together to equal 6, multiply together to equal 9, well, 3 and 3. So that means x plus 3 times x plus 3. So I have to set each equal to 0. 3x equals 0, x plus 3 equals 0, and x plus 3 equals 0. So on this one, divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 0. Here, subtract 3 on both sides, and x equals -3. This one, if I subtract 3 on both sides, I'm going to get the same answer, and so I only need to write it down once. Okay, so we have 2 answers here. All right, so that's how we solve polynomial equations by factoring. So now we're going to move on, and we're going to use a graphing calculator. So using the graphing calculator, I'm going to find the roots of each polynomial. So remember, roots are where they go through the x-axis. So in your calculator, just type in your polynomial. We have x squared minus 2x plus 1. I'm going to graph it, and I can see it looks like it's touching the x-axis right here. So I need to go and check. So one thing that I can do is I can pull up the table. And I can see wherever y is equal to 0, that is a root. So right here y is 0. So that means the x value is 1. So in this one, it looks like there's only one root. So we have x is equal to 1. Okay, on the other one, when we plug it in, we have x to the power of 3 minus 4x squared plus 2x minus 1. Okay, so this one, it looks like it only goes through the x-axis once. So I'm going to pull up my table, and it doesn't show the value where y is 0. So that means I'm going to have to use my calc button where I can find the 0. Okay, so I need to do the left side. So I'm just going to the left of where my graph goes through the x-axis, then the right side, and it tells me when y is 0, x is 3.5 is what I'm going to round it to. So that means x equals 3.5. Okay, so I know when it's x cubed, I can have at least 2 turns, and so you might be saying, well, do I need to expand this more to make sure it doesn't go through any more times? Well, there are 2 turns, it's just this one doesn't quite get up to the x-axis, so don't worry about that one. All right, so go ahead and graph these two on your graphing calculator, see if you can find the roots of the polynomials. Then we'll go through the answers together. Okay, so on number 3, you should have typed it in. So you had x squared plus 5x minus 2. And the graph looks like it goes through twice, and it doesn't look like it's at whole numbers. So to find the zeros, I'm going to go to the left side of where it goes to the x-axis, the right side, and it really doesn't matter which one you pick first. So negative 5.4. And we have another one over here. So again, I'm going to find the 0. This time, I'm just going to get closer to it. So that's the right side, or sorry, the left side. Then the right side. So it's where x equals 0.4 approximately. And those are the answers. So then that third one, type in x to the power of 3 plus x squared minus 3x plus 2. Graph it. All right, this one looks like it just goes through once because that one doesn't quite get back down and touch the x-axis. So let's figure out the 0. All right. And negative 2.5 is what I'm going to round it to, where x equals negative 2.5. Okay, so using the graphing calculator does make it a whole lot easier to find the roots. We're going to do one more where you need to find the zeros of the polynomial function using the quadratic formula. So remember the quadratic formula. Negative b plus and minus square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So remember, in a quadratic, a is the coefficient of x squared, which is 1. B, the coefficient of x, is negative 5. And c, the coefficient, or the constant, which by itself is 2. So just plug it in. You have negative b, which is negative 5, plus or minus the square root b squared, so negative 5 squared, minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2 times your a value. Okay, so I'm going to simplify this, and I get a negative times negative 5 is positive 5, plus and minus the square root. Negative 5 squared is positive 25. Be careful in your calculator. Don't just type in negative 5 then square it. If you type negative 5, you have to put it in parentheses, or else your calculator is going to do 5 squared and just tack on the negative. All right, then we have negative or minus 4 times 1 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. Divided by 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, simplify this a little bit more. We have 5 plus and minus the square root. All right, so here we have 25 minus 8, which gives us 17, divided by 2. So I can't reduce 17 anymore, because I can't simplify it. Square root of 17 here. So that means x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of 17 divided by 2. Okay. try another one. We have over here, A is 3, B is 2, and C is -4. So -2 plus or minus the square root of 2 squared minus 4 times 3 times -4. Again, I'm just using the quadratic formula, divided by 2 times 3. After you find A, B, and C, just plug them in using this. Now I need to simplify. Okay, we have -2 plus and minus the square root of 2 squared is 4. All right, we're going to have a negative times a negative, which will give me a positive, so it's going to be plus. All right, we have 4 times 3 is 12. Okay, so then we have to multiply the 4 times 3 times 4, so 12 times 4 is 48. Divided by 2 times 3 is 6. So again, reduce -2 plus and minus the square root of 4 plus 48 is 52 over 6. I need to see if I can reduce 52. I'm just going to do the math to the side. All right, so we have 52. I know that this is 2 times 26, which is 2 times 13. So that means, because I have a pair of 2's that can come out, and the 13 has to stay underneath. So that's what square root of 52 reduces to. So I'm just going to rewrite that. So it equals -2 plus or minus 2 square roots of 13 over 6. Okay. Just put an arrow because I moved my problem. All right, this means I can reduce because 2, 2, and 6 all can be divided by 2. So we have, for our answer, x is equal to -2 divided by 2 is -1, plus or minus 2 square roots of 13 divided by 2 is 1 square root of 13, over 6 divided by 2 is 3. Okay, so that's my answer. All right, you just have 2 problems left to do. Same types of problems. Go ahead and do them using the quadratic formula, and then I'll go through the answers with you. We have A is equal to 1, B is 7, C is 5. So -7 plus and minus the square root of 7 squared minus 4 times 1 times 5, all divided by 2 times 1. So this gives me -7 plus or minus the square root of 7 times 7 is 49, minus 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 5 is 20, over 2. Okay, then we have x equals -7 plus and minus the square root of 29 over 2. And this is my final answer. All right, last one. All right, A is -1, B is 3, C is 4. So we have -3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared minus 4 times -1 times 4, all over 2 times -1. So bring this down. -3 plus or minus the square root of 3 squared is 9. A negative times a negative will be a positive. 4 times 1 is 4, times 4 is 16, over 2 times -1 is -2. Simplify this. -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 plus 16 is 25, over -2. Okay, rewrite my problem up here. All right, we have -3 plus or minus square root of 25 is 5 over -2. So we're going to have 2 different answers. We will have x is equal to -3 plus 5 over -2, and x is equal to negative 3 minus 5 over negative 2. All right, so this one equals negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2, and 2 divided by negative 2 is negative 1. So that's one answer. This one, negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is positive 4. All right, hopefully you're able to get both of those.